Everyone in the city feared Vincent Moretti's dog more than they feared the police. The first time Alina Brooks heard that sentence, she thought people were exaggerating. Then she saw Rex with her own eyes. The restaurant fell silent the moment the massive black German shepherd stepped through the marble entrance beside Vincent Moretti, his paws soundless against the polished floor, his amber eyes scanning every corner of the room like he understood human secrets better than humans did. Alina tightened her grip on the silver tray balanced against her palm and lowered her eyes immediately. In Belladonna Lounge, you didn't stare at Vincent Moretti. You especially didn't stare at the dog. VIP section, her manager hissed as he passed her near the champagne tower. And don't shake this time. His voice carried that sharp irritation reserved for employees people considered disposable. Alina nodded quietly. Yes, sir. Around her, crystal glasses clinked beneath golden chandelier light while wealthy guests laughed too loudly at jokes that weren't funny. The room smelled like expensive perfume, cigar smoke, and polished cedar. Men in tailored suits stood near the bar pretending not to notice the armed security positioned near every exit. Belladonna wasn't just a restaurant. It was where politicians, celebrities, and dangerous men came to pretend they were all the same species. And tonight, every table revolved around one man. Vincent Moretti sat at the center booth beneath a wall of dark Italian wine bottles, his charcoal suit perfectly fitted, his expression unreadable as guests competed for his attention. But nobody looked at Vincent first. They looked at Rex. The dog rested beside Vincent's chair without a leash, enormous and still, his dark coat gleaming beneath the amber light. Rumors about him traveled through the city like ghost stories. Some claimed Rex had once detected a hidden weapon before security scanners did. Others swore the dog could sense fear before people even spoke. Alina tried not to listen to rumors. Rumors didn't help pay overdue rent. Rumors didn't help buy medication for her little brother waiting at home in Brooklyn with a heart condition. Their insurance barely covered. She approached the VIP section carefully, balancing a tray of sparkling water and crystal tumblers while conversations blurred around her. "Keep your hands steady," another waitress whispered as Alina passed. "That dog hates strangers." Alina forced a small nod, though exhaustion dragged at every muscle in her body. She'd worked 16 straight hours already. Her black flats pinched her swollen feet, and the thin silver necklace beneath her uniform felt heavier tonight for reasons she couldn't explain. She reached Vincent's table just as his fiancée, Veronica Hale, laughed softly into her champagne glass. Diamonds shimmered around her neck like frozen stars. "Honestly," Veronica said to the women beside her, "I still don't understand why restaurants hire girls who look terrified all the time. It ruins the atmosphere." The women chuckled politely. Alina kept her eyes lowered and began pouring water into crystal glasses with practiced precision. "Maybe fear is part of the decor now," one man joked. "Makes the rich feel richer." More laughter. Alina swallowed quietly. She was used to this. Invisible until someone wanted entertainment. She reached toward the final glass when someone bumped her shoulder from behind. The tray tilted. Ice water splashed across the white linen tablecloth and dripped onto the marble floor beside Vincent Moretti's chair. Silence hit the room instantly. Alina's breath caught. Veronica leaned back sharply. "Oh my God." Chairs scraped softly across the floor. Somewhere near the bar, someone whispered, "Don't move." Because Rex had already stood up. The massive dog rose slowly beside Vincent's chair, muscles tightening beneath his dark coat as low growls vibrated through the frozen room. Guests pulled back instinctively. One waiter nearly dropped an entire tray of champagne flutes. Alina remained completely still, her pulse hammering against her ribs. She could hear her manager breathing hard somewhere behind her. Nobody moved toward the dog. Nobody dared. Rex stepped forward once. Then again. His amber eyes locked onto Alina's face while the entire restaurant held its breath. "Get away from her," someone whispered. But before security could react, Rex walked directly past Vincent Moretti, crossed the shattered silence of the room, and lowered himself slowly at Alina's feet. His massive body settled protectively in front of her like a living shield. And for the first time all night, Vincent Moretti looked at the Black Waitress as if he were seeing her for the very first time. No one in Belladonna Lounge seemed to remember how to breathe. The chandelier light reflected across frozen wine glasses and stunned faces while Rex remained motionless at Alina Brooks's feet, his massive body pressed protectively against her legs as though he had made a decision nobody else understood. Vincent Moretti slowly set down his crystal glass without taking his eyes off the waitress. Around him, security guards exchanged uneasy glances. Marco DeLuca, Vincent's head of security, moved first. "Rex," he called carefully, his voice low and controlled. "Come here." The dog did not react. Marco took another cautious step forward. "Rex." A soft growl rolled through the dog's chest instantly, deep enough to stop Marco in place. Several guests shifted backward in their seats. Veronica Hale stared at Alina like she had personally caused the humiliation unfolding before them. "What is wrong with that animal?" she snapped. "Get him away from her." But Vincent still said nothing. That silence frightened people more than shouting ever could. Alina stood perfectly still beside the table, afraid even her breathing might trigger something worse. Rex's head rested near her knee now, calm but alert, his amber eyes tracking every movement around her. She could feel the warmth radiating from his body through the thin fabric of her uniform. Strange. Not threatening. Protective. The realization unsettled her more than fear would have. "I am so sorry, Mr. Moretti," her manager suddenly blurted from across the room, sweat shining on his forehead. "She is new. I can have her removed immediately." Removed. Like she was not even human. Alina lowered her eyes again. She had heard words like that her entire life. In foster homes. In grocery stores. In schools where teachers confused silence for weakness. Quiet girls learned early that humiliation became easier if you pretended not to feel it. Veronica crossed her arms sharply. This is exactly why boundaries matter. Dogs can smell desperation. Several guests laughed nervously, eager to agree with whoever held power in the room. Alina felt heat crawl into her face, but she remained silent. Then something unexpected happened. Rex lifted his head slowly and turned toward Veronica. The growl that followed was not loud, but it emptied the laughter from the room instantly. Veronica's smile vanished. Even Vincent's bodyguard stiffened. The dog's ears pulled back slightly as he moved closer against Alina's side. Protecting her. Again. Interesting, Vincent murmured at last. His voice cut through the silence like velvet dragged across steel. Every eye shifted toward him immediately. Vincent leaned back in his chair, studying Alina with unreadable focus. "What is your name?" Alina swallowed carefully before answering. "Alina Brooks, sir." "How long have you worked here?" 7 months. Vincent's gaze narrowed slightly. "And you are not afraid of him?" It was not a question. Alina glanced down at Rex, whose breathing had slowed into something almost peaceful beside her feet. "No, sir," she admitted quietly. "I think he is afraid for someone else." Another silence spread across the restaurant. Marco frowned. Veronica looked offended by the very idea. But Vincent's expression changed almost imperceptibly. Not softer. More attentive. Like a man hearing a language he had forgotten existed. "You think my dog is protecting you?" Veronica asked sharply. Alina shook her head immediately. "No, ma'am." Her voice stayed gentle despite the tension tightening every face around her. "I think he is trying to protect the room." Marco stepped closer to Vincent's chair. "Boss, this is not normal." "I know," Vincent replied calmly. Rex suddenly shifted again, but instead of aggression, He rested his enormous head directly against Alina's leg and closed his eyes for half a second. The reaction hit the room harder than shouting would have. Because everyone inside Belladonna Lounge knew one thing about Rex Moretti. The dog trusted. Absolutely no one except Vincent. No one. The tension inside Belladonna Lounge changed after that moment. It was no longer fear of the dog. It was fear of what the dog seemed to know. Vincent Moretti remained seated beneath the golden light while conversations died one table at a time around him. Nobody touched their drinks anymore. Nobody laughed. Even the piano player near the bar had stopped moving his fingers across the keys. Rex still rested beside Alina like she belonged under his protection, and every second that passed made the situation stranger. Marco DeLuca crouched carefully a few feet away, studying the dog with narrowed eyes. "Boss," he said quietly, "we should clear the room." Vincent did not answer immediately. His gaze stayed fixed on Alina. She stood there in her simple Black Waitress uniform with spilled water still soaking the cuff of her sleeve, looking more uncomfortable than dangerous. Her curly dark hair had slipped loose from its bun during the chaos, and exhaustion lingered beneath her eyes in shadows no expensive makeup could hide. Nothing about her fit the kind of reaction Rex was having. That was exactly what bothered Vincent. "No," Vincent finally said. "Nobody leaves." The words landed softly, but every person in the restaurant obeyed instantly. Veronica exhaled sharply and leaned toward Vincent. "This is absurd." "It is a dog, Vincent." Clearly something about her smell or behavior confused him. Alina lowered her eyes again as though she wanted to disappear into the marble floor itself. But Rex reacted immediately to Veronica's sharper tone. His ears lifted. A warning rumble spread through his chest again. Veronica froze mid-sentence. "Enough," Vincent said calmly, though his eyes remained thoughtful. "Rex does not get confused." Silence followed. Because everyone there knew that was true. Rex had been with Vincent for 6 years. Trained by former military handlers. Calm under pressure. Ruthlessly disciplined. The dog ignored strangers, tolerated staff, and trusted almost nobody. Yet now he sat beside a waitress from Brooklyn like he had known her his entire life. Alina finally gathered enough courage to speak quietly. "May I sit?" "Down, sir." Vincent nodded once. Slowly. She moved with careful control, lowering herself into the empty chair near the edge of the booth. Rex immediately adjusted beside her, pressing against her leg with visible relief. The reaction sent another ripple through the room. Marco stared openly now. "That is impossible," one guest whispered under his breath. Alina hesitated before gently placing her hand near Rex's shoulder. "Not touching yet. Waiting. Watching him." The massive dog lifted his eyes toward her and nudged her wrist forward himself. A few women near the bar inhaled sharply. Alina's fingers rested lightly against the thick black fur behind his neck. Calm. Certain. Like she had done this before. Vincent noticed the change immediately. Her breathing slowed. So did the dog's. "Where did you learn that?" he asked quietly. Alina looked up for the first time since the night began. "Learn what, sir?" "How to read him." She glanced down at Rex again before answering carefully. "Dogs like him watch body tension first. Eye movement second. Voice last." Marco frowned harder. "Who told you that?" "My father." Her voice softened almost imperceptibly. "He trained working dogs when I was little." Vincent leaned back slightly, studying her with deeper interest now. "Police dogs?" Alina shook her head once. "Military K-9 rehabilitation." Several guests exchanged surprised looks. Veronica gave a short disbelieving laugh. "A waitress from Brooklyn rehabilitating military dogs. That is convenient." Alina's face tightened slightly, but she remained respectful. Not me, ma'am. My father. I only helped. Vincent noticed something then. Every time Veronica spoke, Rex became alert. Every time Alina spoke, the dog relaxed again. The contrast was becoming impossible to ignore. Marco rose slowly to his feet. "Boss," he murmured quietly, "there is definitely something wrong tonight." Vincent's expression remained unreadable. But deep down, instinct had already begun whispering the same thing. And Vincent Moretti had survived his entire life by never ignoring instinct. The atmosphere inside Belladonna Lounge no longer felt like a celebration. It felt like a storm waiting for permission to break. Guests whispered behind raised glasses while Vincent Moretti sat in complete silence, one hand resting loosely against the arm of his chair as he watched the Black Waitress beside his dog. The strange part was not that Rex trusted her anymore. The strange part was that the dog seemed calmer beside her than he ever did beside armed men trained to protect him. Alina kept her movements slow and careful, her fingers lightly brushing the thick fur near Rex's neck while the massive dog remained perfectly still at her side. Every now and then his ears twitched toward the entrance or toward the kitchen hallway, but each time his attention returned to her almost immediately. Like he was listening for something only he could hear. Vincent noticed everything. He noticed the way Alina never pulled attention toward herself. The way she answered questions softly instead of defensively. The way she kept scanning the room without realizing she was doing it. Not nervous scanning. Protective scanning. People trained around danger recognize that instinct in each other. Veronica finally stood from her chair with visible frustration. "I am done sitting here while everyone stares at a waitress like she is some kind of miracle." Her heels clicked sharply against the marble floor as she moved closer to Vincent. "Tell Marco to remove the dog and send her home." Rex's head lifted instantly. The low warning sound returned again. Not loud. Not aggressive. But enough to stop Veronica mid-step. Alina gently rested her hand against Rex's shoulder. "Easy," she whispered softly. The effect was immediate. The dog relaxed again beneath her touch. Marco stared openly now. "Boss," he murmured under his breath, "that should not be possible." Vincent did not answer. His eyes stayed on Alina instead. "What did you just do?" he asked quietly. Alina looked surprised by the question. "Nothing, sir." "You calmed him without a command." She hesitated before speaking carefully. "Dogs like Rex do not respond to dominance first. They respond to energy." Veronica laughed sharply. "Energy? Please." But Vincent ignored her completely. "Explain." Alina swallowed once beneath the weight of his attention. "Fear makes dogs like him alert. Anger makes them defensive. But pain," she paused briefly, her eyes drifting toward Rex. "Pain makes them protective." Silence settled heavily across the room again. Vincent's expression changed almost invisibly at those words. Because Rex had changed after the incident 3 years ago. More guarded. More unpredictable. More attached to Vincent than anyone else alive. Trainers blamed instinct. Veterinarians blamed stress. Nobody had ever used the word pain before. Alina's fingers slowly moved lower along Rex's front leg. Then she stopped. Her brow tightened slightly. "He is injured." Marco frowned immediately. "Impossible. He had a full medical check 2 weeks ago." "No," Alina said quietly. "Old injury. Front left shoulder." Rex shifted slightly beside her as though confirming it himself. "Probably healed wrong." Vincent's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Rex had taken a hard fall during a security incident years earlier. The specialists claimed the shoulder healed completely. But ever since then, the dog became restless during storms and crowded events. Marco stepped closer carefully. "How could you possibly know that?" Alina looked down at her hands. Because he leans away from pressure on that side. And because he keeps watching exits instead of relaxing fully. Vincent leaned back slowly in his chair, studying her now with something far more dangerous than suspicion. Interest. Real interest. Veronica noticed it immediately. Her face hardened. This is ridiculous, she snapped. She is performing for attention. Rex stood so suddenly that several guests gasped. Not toward Alina. Toward Veronica. The dog positioned himself directly between the two women, body tense, amber eyes fixed forward. The entire room froze again. Alina's expression changed instantly. Not fear. Concern. No, she whispered softly while reaching toward Rex's collar. Something is wrong. Vincent rose to his feet for the first time that night. And the moment he did, every instinct in the room shifted with him. The room shifted the moment Vincent Moretti stood up. Conversation stopped completely. Even the servers near the kitchen. Entrance froze in place with trays balanced nervously in trembling hands. Vincent carried power the way storms carried thunder. Quiet until they were directly above you. Rex remained positioned in front of Veronica, his massive body tense, his ears lifted toward the far side of the restaurant. Alina slowly rose from her chair beside him, careful not to make sudden movements. Her eyes followed the dog's attention instinctively. Toward the rear hallway near the private elevator. What does he hear? Vincent asked quietly. The question surprised everyone because he was asking her. Not Marco. Not security. Her. Alina listened for a moment. Beneath the soft hum of the air conditioning and distant traffic outside, she heard it too. Not a sound exactly. More like rhythm. Footsteps that stopped whenever someone looked toward the hallway. Her stomach tightened slightly. I think someone is nervous, she admitted softly. Marco immediately touched the earpiece hidden beneath his collar. Check the rear entrance, he ordered under his breath. Two security men moved quickly through the crowd toward the hallway. Veronica crossed her arms tightly. This is becoming absurd. We are taking security advice from a waitress now. Nobody answered her. Because Rex had not moved his eyes away from the hallway once. Vincent noticed something else too. Alina was no longer shaking. The nervous waitress from 20 minutes ago had disappeared. In her place stood someone calm, observant, almost painfully aware of the room around her. Like instinct had replaced fear. You worked with your father often? Vincent asked. Alina hesitated before answering. After school mostly. He helped retrain military dogs that struggled after deployment. Vincent studied her expression carefully. Struggled how? She looked down at Rex gently. Noise sensitivity. Hypervigilance. Trouble trusting unfamiliar environments. Her hand brushed softly along the dog's neck again. Some of them stopped recognizing safe places. Silence settled around Vincent for half a second. Because the description fit Rex too closely. The dog had become increasingly restless during public events over the last year. Aggressive. Sometimes. Distracted. Veterinarians blamed age. Trainers blamed overstimulation. But watching Rex beside Alina now felt like watching a different animal entirely. Calm. Focused. Certain. One of the security men suddenly reappeared from the rear hallway, his face tight with confusion. Nothing there, boss. Marco frowned immediately. You checked the service entrance. Locked. The second guard appeared behind him moments later. Everything clear. Veronica let out a sharp breath of irritation. Wonderful. Can we finally stop pretending the dog is psychic? But Rex did not relax. If anything, the tension in his body sharpened further. Alina noticed it instantly. No, she whispered softly. He still smells something. Marco looked annoyed now. Dogs smell hundreds of things in a restaurant. Not like this. Alina's eyes slowly swept across the room. Crystal glasses. Expensive watches. Candlelight reflecting off polished marble. Nervous faces pretending not to stare. Then her gaze stopped near the bar. A man in a dark gray suit stood partially hidden beside one of the support columns, holding a phone too tightly in one hand. He looked away the second her eyes met his. Rex growled immediately. Low. Certain. Vincent followed the dog's line of sight at once. The man near the bar began walking calmly toward the exit. Too calmly. Marco straightened instantly. Stop him. Two guards moved across the floor. The man hesitated for one fraction of a second before quickly turning toward the side corridor leading to the kitchen. Guests gasped softly as security followed after him. The sound of hurried footsteps echoed briefly through the restaurant before disappearing behind swinging metal doors. Then silence returned again. Heavy. Watching. Waiting. Veronica looked pale now. What is happening? Vincent never answered. His attention remained fixed on Alina instead. Because while everyone else in the room looked frightened, confused, or angry, she looked deeply sad. Like she recognized something familiar in Rex's behavior that nobody else understood. The dog slowly moved back beside her leg again and finally, for the first time all night, released a long exhausted breath. And Vincent Moretti suddenly realized something that unsettled him far more than danger ever could. Rex had not chosen Alina because she controlled him. Rex had chosen her because she understood him. The private dining room slowly emptied after the incident near the kitchen corridor, but nobody left Belladonna Lounge without looking back at Alina Brooks one more time. Some guests stared at her with curiosity. Others with suspicion. A few looked almost afraid. Because in less than an hour, the quiet black waitress everyone ignored had somehow become the center of Vincent Moretti's attention. And in Vincent's world, attention changed lives. The musicians had stopped playing completely now. Candles flickered against dark marble walls while security quietly swept the building again. Veronica disappeared into the restroom with visible frustration, leaving behind untouched champagne and a chair still slightly turned away from the table. Marco stood near the entrance speaking into his earpiece in clipped whispers, but Vincent remained exactly where he was beside Rex and Alina. Watching. Thinking. Rex finally lowered himself onto the floor again with a heavy breath, though he refused to leave Alina's side. She sat carefully near the edge of the booth, shoulders tense beneath her black uniform, like she still expected someone to tell her she had crossed a line she could never uncross. Vincent poured a small glass of sparkling water and slid it toward her across the table. The gesture was simple, but several nearby employees nearly stopped breathing when they saw it. Men like Vincent Moretti did not serve people. Especially not waitresses. Alina looked startled before quietly accepting the glass. Thank you, sir. Vincent leaned back slightly. You keep calling me sir like I am about 90 years old. The corner of Alina's mouth almost moved. Almost. Sorry. Habit. From your father? Her expression softened faintly at the mention of him. Yes. Vincent noticed the change immediately. Military man. Marine Corps. Her fingers rested absently against Rex's fur while she spoke. After deployment he worked with damaged service dogs. She paused quietly. He said people. Forget that animals carry memories too. Vincent's eyes drifted toward Rex. The dog looked more peaceful now than he had in months. Your father still works with them? The silence that followed changed the air between them. Alina lowered her eyes toward the untouched water glass in her hands. No, one word. Soft. Heavy. Vincent understood immediately. I am sorry. She nodded once. Thank you. Marco approached the table again then, his expression still tense. The man near the bar disappeared through the loading entrance. "We are checking surveillance now." Vincent gave a slow nod, but his attention never fully left Alina. "Did Rex react to anyone else tonight?" Marco hesitated. "No, only her." "Yes." Vincent glanced toward the dog thoughtfully. "Interesting." Alina looked uncomfortable again beneath the weight of the conversation. "I should probably get back to work." Rex lifted his head immediately at those words. Vincent noticed it. So did Marco. "He does not want you to leave," Marco muttered under his breath. Alina looked down at the dog gently. "He is anxious." "About what?" Vincent asked quietly. She hesitated. "Honestly?" "Always." Her fingers slowly brushed along Rex's shoulder again. "I think he has spent too long around people pretending to be calm." Vincent froze almost imperceptibly at that answer. Because she was right. Every room he entered was full of performance. Smiles hiding agendas. Loyalty hiding fear. Conversations layered with manipulation. Rex lived inside that tension constantly. And somehow this exhausted waitress from Brooklyn had understood in one night what trained handlers had missed for years. Veronica returned from the hallway moments later, her expression cold as ice when she saw Vincent still sitting beside Alina. "You cannot seriously be entertaining this." Vincent's gaze lifted slowly toward her. "Entertaining what?" "This girl." The words landed sharply enough that several nearby staff members looked down immediately. Alina's face tightened slightly, but she remained silent. Veronica folded her arms. "She spilled water all over your table, disrupted dinner, and now somehow everyone is treating her like she belongs here." Before Vincent could answer, Rex stood again. This time the growl that rolled through his chest was deeper than before. Not aggressive. Warning. Vincent watched the dog carefully for several seconds. Then he looked at Veronica with an unreadable expression and said the one thing nobody at Belladonna Lounge expected to hear. "Maybe she does belong here." The silence after Vincent Moretti's words felt heavier than the marble walls surrounding Belladonna Lounge. Nobody moved. Nobody even pretended to. Veronica stared at Vincent as though she no longer recognized the man standing in front of her. Around the restaurant, staff members lowered their eyes immediately, because everyone understood something dangerous had just shifted. Vincent rarely repeated himself. And he never defended employees publicly. Alina felt her pulse hammer against her ribs as Rex settled protectively beside her again. She wanted to disappear. Every instinct she had developed through years of surviving difficult places told her attention from powerful people always came with consequences. Good or bad, it changed everything. Veronica let out a sharp laugh that carried no humor. "You cannot possibly be serious." Vincent remained calm. "About which part?" "About her belonging here." Veronica gestured openly toward Alina now, as though discussing furniture instead of a human being. "She is a waitress." The words landed harder than shouting would have. Alina lowered her eyes toward the floor again, pretending not to feel the humiliation burning through her chest. She had heard versions of that sentence her entire life. Just a waitress. Just a maid. Just another invisible woman carrying trays while wealthy people forgot her face before dessert arrived. But before she could retreat into silence again, Vincent spoke quietly. "And?" Veronica blinked. "Excuse me. You said she is a waitress." Vincent's voice remained smooth and controlled. "I asked what your point was." The entire room froze. Marco looked down immediately to hide his reaction. Several nearby guests suddenly became very interested in their drinks. Veronica's face tightened. "My point is this entire situation is embarrassing." Rex lifted his head again at the sharpness in her voice. Alina gently touched the dog's shoulder before the tension could rise further. Vincent noticed the movement instantly. Calm again. Every time. Embarrassing for who? Vincent asked. Veronica stared at him in disbelief now. Vincent. Her voice dropped lower. This girl disrupted dinner, caused a scene, and now your dog is acting insane because she touched him for 5 minutes. Alina immediately shook her head softly. I did not mean to cause trouble. Vincent's eyes shifted toward her. You did not. The certainty in his tone startled her more than anger would have. Marco suddenly stepped closer to Vincent, holding a small phone in one hand. Boss. His expression had changed. Tighter now. More serious. Vincent glanced toward the screen. What is it? Marco lowered his voice carefully. We checked surveillance from the hallway. Veronica folded her arms impatiently. Can we please finish this later? But Marco continued looking directly at Vincent. The man near the bar was not alone. The temperature in the room seemed to drop instantly. Vincent took the phone from Marco's hand and watched the footage silently for several seconds. Alina could not see the screen clearly, but she noticed Vincent's expression harden almost imperceptibly. Not fear. Recognition. Pause it, Vincent said quietly. Marco froze the image. Vincent stared at the screen another moment before slowly lifting his eyes toward the room around him. Toward the guests. Toward the exits. Then toward Veronica. Rex stood immediately. The movement happened so fast several people gasped softly. The dog positioned himself directly beside Vincent now, body tense, ears alert, eyes fixed on Veronica's side of the room again. Veronica's face paled slightly. Why is he looking at me like that? Nobody answered. Vincent slowly handed the phone back to Marco without looking away from her. Because, he said quietly, someone at this dinner lied about who they invited tonight. Silence crashed across the restaurant again. Heavy. Absolute. Alina felt Rex press closer against her leg as though the dog had already understood something the humans were only beginning to realize. And for the first time that night, fear spread through Veronica Hale's eyes instead of anger. Veronica Hale slowly stepped backward beneath the chandelier light as Rex stared directly at her with cold, unwavering focus. Belladonna Lounge froze in silence while Vincent Moretti stood motionless beside the table, calm in the terrifying way only powerful men could be when anger turned quiet. Marco replayed the surveillance footage and revealed the second intruder had entered through the private elevator using authorization from Veronica's guest list. Her composure cracked instantly. She insisted she could not control every guest her assistant approved, but Vincent said nothing, and Rex moved one slow step closer, growling low beneath Alina Brooks' gentle touch. The contrast unsettled everyone, the massive guard dog calming only for the exhausted Black Waitress beside him. Marco then confirmed the suspicious man had communicated through a burner phone all night, and Vincent finally approached Veronica with measured stillness that made the entire room hold its breath. Look at me, he said softly. When she nervously claimed Rex was unstable, the dog growled harder. Vincent tilted his head slightly. Interesting answer. Then came the realization that chilled the entire restaurant. Rex had reacted before anyone discovered the danger, before the footage, before the names. He sensed fear before the room did. Marco's earpiece suddenly crackled with new information. The intruder worked for Daniel Vescari, Vincent's oldest rival. Veronica's face drained white. Vincent asked quietly, how long have you been lying to me? Her silence became the confession. Finally she admitted she knew Vescari's people were watching Vincent, though she insisted she never intended violence. The disappointment in Vincent's eyes hurt more than rage ever could. Escort Miss Hale home, he ordered softly, ending everything without raising his voice once. As security cleared the guests and rain blurred Manhattan outside the windows, Rex slowly relaxed beside Alina, exhaustion replacing aggression the moment truth entered the room. Vincent noticed the dog trusted her completely, resting peacefully at her feet for the first time in years. Watching her gently stroke Rex's ears, Vincent quietly understood something deeper than betrayal that night. The most dangerous souls often recognize peace long before people do.